Well, good morning, America, and welcome once again to your daily dose of scripture news and commentary. Today is Wednesday, July the 3rd, 2024. This is America's Independence Eve. This week, our nation celebrates 248 years of independence from tyranny. And for the rest of the week, I want to share on the American idea. It seems today that everybody has an opinion on America's purpose in the world. And the definitions that are being put forth today, either within our society or around the globe, are intentionally designed to degrade who we are as a people. Literally every American ideal that's rooted in the Christian faith is being assaulted today, and American exceptionalism is vilified. It's mocked, even by people within our own nation. America's Christian heritage is being mocked, ignored, and even hated by even our own people. And the haters of that want you to believe that America is a stain on human history. But the only definitions today that matter are God's definitions. So I want to look at the American idea from his perspective. This is going to be a three-part series, a little mini-series here. And I want to begin with a two-part truth that's contained in Scripture. And here's that two-part truth. I really want you to get this. I'll repeat this so you get it embedded in your mind. Part one is that there are three Israels in Scripture. And then misunderstanding any of those Israels will create blindness in part. Again, let me restate that. This is a two-part truth that's contained in Scripture. There are three Israels that are contained in Scripture, and misunderstanding any of them will create blindness in part. Now, as it relates to the gospel of the kingdom, if you misunderstand any of those three Israels, you'll either reject the gospel of the kingdom entirely, or you'll underdevelop it. You will underdevelop it. Now, the most commonly understood Israel in Scripture is spiritual Israel, and that's the Christian church. When Paul addresses Gentile believers in Galatians chapter 3 and verse 29, he says this to the Galatians. He says, "If you be Christ's, then are ye Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise." Well, Paul is talking about spiritual Israel. Spiritual Israel is everybody who has put their faith in Jesus Christ, and it's one of the three Israels. But there are still two more Israels in Scripture. And spiritual Israel, the church, does not replace either one of the other two Israels. Who are those other two Israels? Well, one of the other Israels is the house of Judah. That's the two tribes of Israel known as Benjamin and Judah. They're called the house of Judah in Scripture, and they're known today as the Jews. They're Jew, duh. Jew is a contraction of Judah. Okay? So the house of the house of Judah, which is the two tribes of Israel, Benjamin and Judah, they're known today as the Jews. And they are literal and physical dependents of Abraham, and they are largely not Christian. Now, the house of Judah today, the Jewish people, it's the nation called the Jewish state of Israel in the Middle East. And they are the second Israel in Scripture. They're a physical Israel. So you've got spiritual Israel, which is the church. That's one of the Israels. Well, then you've also got the house of Judah. They're one of the physical Israels in Scripture. That's your second Israel in Scripture. Well, who's the third Israel in Scripture? Well, this one is the most misunderstood. It's the house of Israel. The house of Israel in the Bible is the 10 tribes of Israel who were Isaac's sons, and they migrated northward into Europe, into the British Isles, and eventually to the west. They were Isaac's sons, and as they were migrating, they became known as apostrophe Saxons. Well, they're known today as the Saxons. That's where that term comes from. Well, you see, they declared independence from the house of Judah in 1 Kings chapter 12. You can read about it there. 1 Kings chapter 12. And they declared their independence because of excessive taxation and decided to form their own nation. Well, within a few generations of them doing that in 1 Kings chapter 12, the house of Israel fell into sin and idolatry, and they were taken captive northward out of that region into Assyria. But then when the Assyrians let them go, so to speak, they eventually migrated northward into Europe. Now, in the centuries and in the millennia that followed that time period, they became blind to their heritage. The Saxons became blind to the fact that they are literally one of the Israels in Scripture. They became blind to their heritage. And they begin to form tribal nations all throughout Europe. And you can read about that story in Hosea chapter 1. I'm giving you some homework here. You need to read 1 Kings chapter 12. You need to read Hosea chapter 1. So they begin to scatter northward into Europe, and they begin to form tribal nations throughout Europe. But in the last 400 years, in fulfillment of prophecy, as we've approached the end of this dispensation, as things begin to mature, those 10 tribes came back together, and they formed one nation under God in the West. You see, the gospel of the kingdom formed their kingdom. Now, that nation today, the house of Israel, where they reconglomerated, that nation today is known as the United States of America. America is the gathering place for all of the physical tribes of Israel. And even Judah and Benjamin have largely joined in here in the United States. A lot of people don't realize this, but there are more Jews in America today than there are in even their own Jewish state of Israel in the Middle East. And even though the Jewish people are largely not Christian, they want the blessings of living in a Christian nation that the house of Israel built. So America in the Bible is the people group known today as the house of Israel. When you read the Bible and you see the house of Israel and you see prophecies directed to the house of Israel, just put in the word America. Okay, that's the people group that form the United States of America. And we are the third Israel in Scripture. So you've got spiritual Israel, which is the church. You've got Israel number 2, which is part of physical Israel. That's the Jewish people, the house of Judah. And then you've got the house of Israel, which is the other 10 tribes. The Saxon portion of Israel were the third Israel in Scripture. We are literal and physical descendants of Abraham. And today we've grown lukewarm. We've grown even apostate in our Christianity because as a nation we've entered into the Laodicean age. You can read about that in Revelation chapter 3. We've declined into lukewarmness. Now, as you read the Scripture, you're going to discover that God has distinct plans for each Israel. And there are specific prophecies in the Bible for the house of Israel. That's one of the Israels. For the house of Judah, that's another Israel. And then also to the global Christian community. That's the third Israel, the spiritual Israel. There are distinct prophecies, specific prophecies for each one. You've got to rightly divide what goes to whom. There are even entire books of the Bible that are devoted to specific people groups. And as we rightly divide what's being said and to whom, it helps us make sense of what's happening in our world today. It's the key that helps you unlock the prophetic books of the Bible. Now, I want to begin with this foundation because my viewers today, I understand my viewers are largely in the United States of America. You're largely Christian, and you're likely one or more of the following Israels. You're probably a spiritual Israelite, which is a Christian believer. It's likely that you're possibly a physical Israelite. You're of either Saxon or Jewish descent. Perhaps you're a combination of those two, spiritual Israelite and physical Israelite. And if you're just, frankly, if you're just living in the United States of America, perhaps you have a Gentile ethnic background. But if you're a spiritual Israelite, friends, you're living in the house of Israel. And so this message that I'm going to be sharing over the next few days is for you. I want you to understand that. Don't exclude yourself from what I'm going to share, because frankly, in all likelihood, you've got a dog in the hunt. You've got a stake in this game that's called America. And so since we're all Israelites and we all live in the house of Israel, it leads me then to a critical question. What is God's original design for America? Now, I've shared extensively on God's original design for individuals, how that we need to reverse the curse in our individual lives, in our families. But I'm going to ask the question, what is God's original design for our nation? Now, as we conclude this video, I want to go into a passage of Scripture and start to lay the foundation for that, and we'll pick this up again tomorrow. But let's see what God begins to do in physical Israel, our people group, all the way back in Exodus chapter 2. Here's what it says, beginning in Exodus 2 and verse 23. It says that it came to pass that in the process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. Now, as I said, I don't have any time today to play this forward. We're going to start to do that tomorrow. But I want you to look in Exodus chapter 3, verses 9 and 10 specifically. And you'll see how this starts to play itself out in this chapter. It says, Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, God's talking to Moses here, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. The marching orders for the nation of Israel, for the people of Israel, was this: separate or die. There was a time where the marching orders for the United States of America, for the colonies within the United States of America, was to join or die against oppression. It was to join up, fight against the tyranny that we're experiencing. But the greater overarching call from God for our people is this: it's separate or die. It's separate from the global community. God has a separation plan for this nation. This is God's covenant and direction for our people as it relates to the global community. And as I said, I'm going to continue to build this out tomorrow, but we're out of time for today. All right, until tomorrow, remember the words for America that are found in Psalms 33 and verse 12, which say, Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own inheritance. Stand out.